Many local music goers still fondly remember the old Sunderland Roadhouse Club on Route 47, the Rusty Nail. Burned to the ground over 30 years ago, the Nail hosted an incredible array of local and international acts, including the Ramones, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and James Brown. Executive producer Tony Dunne takes us on a trip down Route 47 to find this gone but not forgotten landmark.
The Rusty Nail on its dusty trail. Route 47, there's a little bit of heaven.
The Rusty Nail was one of those places.
It was out in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't tell you where it was now. If we drove past it, I probably wouldn't recognize the place.
It looked like this just barn sitting out in the middle of a parking lot. And the parking lot would just be packed.
Cars would be lined up on Route 47 all the way back to the Hadley line.
I thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun. And I kind of expected chicken wire in front of the stage and that kind of thing. And I walked in, and it was very dark. A lot of wood inside.
Woody would be a term.
It was just like walking into any kind of roadside honky-tonk.
And there was a bar right in front.
And beer was cheap.
Always great shows, really good sound.
And it smelled musty, and it also smelled flammable. It smelled like it might go up at any moment. The range of smells at the Rusty Nail was interesting. And unfortunately, it did finally burn.
It opened in the early 70s in sort of nowhere. It was right off Route 47 in Sunderland, Mass.
I've embarked on a project where I'm cataloging all the local concerts. The first concert that I have for the Rusty Nail is Bob Adrian on February 14th, 1972. And it says formerly the Meadow Inn.
To the three people, it was the Meadows. It was a restaurant. Ed Steffen, Jack Dunn, and Kathy Steffen, I believe, were the three people.
I guess they closed the kitchen there at some point and just decided to do only music.
It was always a pleasure to play there. You had this nice stage to play on, great sound.
We played the Nail, first of all, it's kind of fuzzy, because it was the 60s and 70s, but we played there at least once a month in the beginning.
I probably saw Fat, Clean Living, Real Tears many, many times.
I remember seeing NRBQ at the Rusty Nail and just being totally knocked out.
We played with NRBQ there one night, and people were literally climbing up to the second floor windows.
Saw King Sunny Ade and his African Beats 17-piece band, Orchestra Luna. Tom Waits was there, Warren Zevon, the Neville Brothers.
We played there with Lydia Pence and Cold Blood, which was just took the paint off the walls in that place.
The Poussette Dart Band was there, James Cotton, Les McCann. The older musicians were always the best ones to deal with because they were bothered the least by anything. And they were just fun to be around. And they knew everybody, so they had great stories.
John Lee Hooker. I remember George Carlin, the comedian, was there a couple times.
Just an amazing array of artists from all different kinds of music.
We played there with the Ramones. They took your face off, those guys did. They were a great rock band.
I had a great view of Joey Ramone holding up the Gabba Gabba Hey sign.
The band finished their sound check and loading in, and they were asking, where do we go to eat? They learned about Demos, and that's where they ended up. And I'm sure there were people who walked into Demos that night just expecting that they were going to get a cheeseburger or something, and there were the Ramones. It was probably a pretty wacky experience.
It felt like the 70s kind of washed into things too, because they had a lot of the blues artists, James Brown.
Definitely one of my most favorite moments, if not my most favorite, was seeing James Brown there.
And I can remember James Brown dropping to his knees and getting the cape put on him.
And it was just remarkable to see James Brown in Sunderland.
I think that the Rusty Nail changed with the changing times.
And in the early 80s, we did a handful of shows, including the Buzzcocks, 999, the Dead Kennedys.
I remember the crowd was very new wave back then. Lots of very short haircuts and skinny ties. It was the beginning of the ability to be able to see new wave and alternative bands in the Valley.
I don't think people realize just how vibrant a music scene the Valley was back then.
Yeah, the idea that you saw a James Brown or Ramones in the middle of nowhere in a wooden shack, it's mind-blowing.
I remember hearing that the Nail burned down, and I felt really, really bad about it. It was just kind of like an era had gone, and you don't get those kind of places back again.
You know, it just felt like a place that we kind of took for granted. It's 30 years. That's the thing that's amazing. I mean, the place has been gone since July of 1985.
It's not so much a product of it having been the Rusty Nail. It would have been something else if it wasn't the Nail, but that was the place where, for that generation, for this generation of people, they saw a lot of the bands that were part of their formative years.
It was a community experience around this great entertainment. And that's what this area was all about back then. And we personified the best of that era. And that was the club. That was kind of the temple in the middle of it all.
The Rusty Nail on its dusty trail. On Route 47 there's a little bit of heaven. Route 47 there was a little piece of heaven.